There's no crying in fantasy. Week 5. Sean, what's going on?
Man, it's going good. Just living life. Week 5 is underway. It's a Tuesday night. We're early this week.
We're early.
We're early, but that's okay. We're gonna take a deep dive.
I feel accomplished being this early.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Tuesday's a good day to measure everything what's happened, so I don't think it's bad at all.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go ahead and get into it. What do we have on the injury report?
So a couple guys here. It's kind of go in order from team here. Um, for the Ravens, you got Odell. He's still out. He's very uncertain versus Steelers. We might not see him for the rest of the year. Um, what a fraud. But Rashad Bateman, that's a real key player here. That's one of the wide receivers you really want to worry about for the Ravens. You missed the last game. Uh, the report says he's still pretty cloudy versus Steelers with the hamstring injury. Do you if he goes, do you think does he make any fantasy impact and maybe take some of Say Flowers' targets?
No. I think it's the Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews show in Baltimore, with a little bit of Gus Edwards, probably some Justice Hill, and Lamar, of course. But I don't see they're not a throwing offense. I mean, no matter how much they want to throw the ball, and they did a little bit against the Browns, they did pretty well. But as you see, most of the targets go to Mark Andrews. It's going to Zay Flowers, and then Lamar's going to do the rest. So no, I don't see it. And I mean, if you were to start Bateman, this is a good week because they're going against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is like bottom 5, bottom 10 in passing as a defense. They don't really. I mean, they have some pressure up front, but I think Lamar takes a lot of that pressure off with his ability to run. So if you are going to start Bateman, maybe this is the week. But I just think it's Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in a deeper league and if he's sitting on your waiver wire and you're needing somebody to pick up, I guess he's worth a pickup. But if your waiver wire consists of Romeo Dobbs on the waiver wire, which I just put in a claim for him in one of my leagues, no, you definitely go for Romeo Dobbs because that man's been balling.
Yeah.
Um, Rashad Bateman, he's a guy. If you're picking up you're stashing them. You're not picking them up to produce. So and it's not really the greatest stash. Um, so I got a little defensive player here. Trey White for the Bills tore his Achilles. The Bills look pretty good against the Dolphins. Um, how much you think it will affect that defense? And let's say if it does impact the defense in a negative way, do you think maybe that forces Josh Allen to pass more? That's kind of like a double question.
Yeah. I think this is a big loss for that defense. They were already struggling. Buffalo is like number seventh worst defense against the pass. So you're already losing your top cornerback. Um, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but I do think that this allows defenses to score a little bit more on Buffalo, pushes the tempo a little bit more, and yeah, it could impact Josh Allen in a positive light for fantasy where they have to pass the ball a little bit more.
Right, and hey, we'll see what happens there. That is a huge blow out for the season. Arguably one of their best defense players. But Sean McDermott, he's probably one of the best defensive coaches, head coaches we've seen in the past 5 years or so. So I expect him to get it done. But the defense, if I'm looking at some matchups here, if you're a pass heavy offense, you know, I don't like. Let's say, for example, they played against a team like Houston. I would kind of look at that like no Trey White. that's a team I would definitely play against. Jonathan Mingo, Panthers. Didn't play last game. Not certain to play against the Lions. That just pushes more targets for Adam Thielen. And my boy, Terrace Marshall, he's been going off as well. That's worth a waiver wire pickup for
Yep.
sure. Especially if Jonathan Mingo doesn't go. But the Panthers have been reported in looking for a wide receiver to trade for. So, what do you think about this Panthers wide receiver room?
If it's not Adam Thielen, I don't want anything to do with it right now. The only other receiver that I would want is Jonathan Mingo, and I would just stash Mingo. I think it's going to be a little bit more valuable towards the end of the year. Terrace Marshall is solid wide receiver, but we just haven't seen him put it together in the NFL just yet. Some spurts, but nothing, nothing that makes you want to start him or anything. And DJ Shark has like some good down the field ability, but he's never really put together solid seasons, and he has health issues. So it's Adam Thielen or nothing.
Well, Terrace Marshall averaged 9 targets the past 2 games, 8 targets with Andy Dalton as quarterback, 10 targets with Bryce Young coming back this week. He had 14.6 points, 8.5 last week. So I don't know. That shows some growth, and he's getting a higher snap count as well. So
That's
I think
also
it's
with
something.
that's also with Mingo out too.
That's what I'm saying. If Mingo is out and let's say Terrace pops off, do you think, Mingo takes a back seat?
No. I
No.
mean, yeah. I do think Terrace takes a back seat to Mingo once Mingo comes back.
Okay.
I think they want to get Mingo involved.
I got you. Irv Smith, he's already missed 2 straight. Looks like he's fixing to miss a third straight. He's questionable. That Bengals offense is struggling. Uh, Another Bengal, T. Higgins, exit last game. That's a big injury there. Fractured ribs. It's yet to be determined if he'll play against the Cardinals, still listed as questionable. Do you think he goes against the Cardinals at the end of the week?
I don't think so. We'll see what the injury report looks like tomorrow, but I just don't see him playing this week. But I think that this week, and I'll talk about this later, I think that this is a big run heavy week for Cincinnati anyway. I think they want to take as much pressure off of Joe Burrow with him still recovering from that injury too. So you'll see a lot of run game this week.
Yeah, for sure. And that offensive line for the Bengals have been putrid, and it has not been fun to watch in Cincinnati. And I think people have been sending me trade offers in all my leagues, trying to dump off T. Higgins, and it's like, I'm not paying this amount for a bum T. Higgins with an offense that hasn't figured it out.
Right.
And sooner or later, the path that they're going, I Joe Burrow is on the break to get hurt for the rest of the season. So I'm not buying anything Bengals. The value is low for me there until they can prove that they fixed the O line problems. I'm not buying anything Bengals. Do not catch that bait.
Yep.
Deshaun Watson did not play last game. Questionable versus 49ers. I expect him to be out. I expect him to be
They're,
out.
they're on bye this week.
Oh, really? Okay, you're right.
Yep. They're on bye this week.
They
I
play the
think
49ers after the bye.
Yep. I think part of the reason why he did sit out was because they knew that they were going on bye.
Okay.
So
Yeah, he'll play it in.
yeah.
If it's a bye, he'll play it in. That makes sense. Um, you know, it still doesn't matter for me. I don't really like Deshaun Watson as a fantasy player, but him not playing does directly affect Amari Cooper because I had him in my fantasy league and I think he just threw up a goose egg if I'm not mistaken, 0.
2
He had 2
points.
points. I mean, so I mean, if you have Amari Cooper, you want Watson to play, but
Yeah,
if you have Watson, the player himself, I don't know if you're feeling all that great.
yeah.
Uh,
It takes
you know,
it puts pressure on the whole offense because they couldn't get the run game going. The passing game was terrible. I know everybody likes the backup quarterback DTR, but he's just not there yet, and we don't know if he's ever going to get there. So,
no
if
Nick
you have
Chubb
yeah,
really hurts.
no Nick Chubb either. It's like if you're planning on if Watson is going to be out after the bye, plan on benching Amari Cooper because it's not going to be pretty. If DTR starts.
Right. And Javante Williams, he gets hurt pretty early versus the Bears with a
Yeah,
hip, and he's questionable against the Jets. That brought up Jarrell McLaughlin,
yeah,
um, which is one of my sleepers for this week. Surprisingly, he got more touches than Samaje Perine. I think that says a lot about him. And he's a guy that had a lot of training camp buzz in
hmm
Denver. And I know Sean Payton, and there's nothing more than he likes is an undrafted rookie running back. You've seen it with Chris Ivory. You've seen it with Kyrie Robinson. I mean,
yeah,
the list continues. Pereira Thomas. I mean, I think Javante's going to be out next game, and I think Jalil is going to get you know a lot of the touches. And if you're in a PPR league, he's your number one waiver wire pickup, in my opinion.
yeah. I think if you're looking for a running back, he is. I don't expect Javante to be out that long, but Javante
Disappointing, dude.
also hasn't. Yeah, he also hasn't looked that good. So if you're looking for a target of somebody that you can pick up and possibly hold for a little bit, McLaughlin is probably that guy.
I think I'm on the verge of dropping Javante, and I
No, no,
believe I
no, no,
have him
no,
in all
no,
three leagues. Like I'm on the
no,
verge, bro. Like it's that bad. Like
no.
I just don't see
You
it.
don't drop Javante. He's not going to be out that long. I think he still comes back as a starter, but the question is, does he keep his job? If McLaughlin goes off this weekend, if Javante doesn't play, does he keep his job?
It's just he's never had a consistent amount of like snaps. It's also been low. Samaje took a lot. Now Jalil is getting into the conversation. So I mean, he's got to really show something, in my opinion, to really get the bell cow work from Sean Payton. Or regardless, he's just gonna run three backs because that's just how he is. So I don't know, man. I'm looking to sell him, but nobody wants him. So it's just like he's taking a spot now on my bench, and I mean, I got a IR. He's going to be on my IR for 1 week, but who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
if he comes back this week, I'm probably benching him. I have him in 2 leagues, and I have other running backs. For example, I have Jalen Warren and A Chain. I'm probably going to start Jalen Warren and A Chain over
yeah,
Javante
for
if he
sure.
plays this week. Yeah,
Oh, like I wouldn't even question that. I would definitely start those two over Javante for sure. Jamison Williams comes off suspension. That's a big one. It's about time,
yes,
and he's my number two waiver wire pickup for this week. He's my guy. I put in waiver claims for him and Jalil. So we'll see what happens. I think he's gonna be big time in my opinion.
yeah. I picked him up in 3 leagues probably a week ago. I didn't expect him to come off a suspension so early, but I wanted to get ahead of it. So we'll see what happens. I have one league where I have players on bye. I'm probably going to start them just because I need somebody to start in the wide receiver spot. But
It may
um,
take a week or two.
yeah, it's going to take a couple of weeks. But I feel like if you need somebody, it's worth a shot. He could get a long catch, maybe a touchdown or something that they may try to acclimate him back in and get him in the end zone.
Well, the good thing for the Lions that they got Josh Reynolds stepping up and being a good, wide receiver for him. I think they will take it slow with Williams, but eventually Williams, if he's on a good trajectory, he will take Josh Reynolds' spot, and he'll eventually be wide receiver too. And uh, I think he's definitely got Jalen Waddle potential. But I do think we are about 2 to 4 weeks off of that potential. So,
Yep.
uh, good stash for 1 week. You may can flirt with starting him next week, depending on what the snap count is for him coming off the suspension. Um, Luke Musgrave, concussion, got knocked out last game. Um, I don't think he plays against the Raiders, and that sucks because he was a guy I was targeting. Good thing I wasn't able to pick him up. I picked up Komet, which was a very good thing.
Yeah.
He went off, so uh, sucks for a young tight end, and hopefully it doesn't linger because he definitely has good potential in fantasy. He's a guy that target, like I said, target the first 3 weeks. Uh, but that does open the door for maybe who's the other rookie tight end they had?
I don't remember his name, but I know they were getting Degora.
Gore. Yeah, he was getting targeted. Yeah.
But I
So
don't want any. I don't want any other Green Bay tight end. I would rather go with like Zach Ertz or Noah Fant maybe next week.
well, really, John Smith is the guy you
That
want to
too.
target.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into that a little
Yeah.
later. But
Yeah.
let's see. Mike Williams out for the season. We couldn't report that last week because we took a week off. Out for the season for ACL. Do you think that opens the door for Quentin Johnson?
Yeah. Definitely. I think Trey Palmer is the immediate beneficiary of that, but
Mhm.
Quentin Johnston is definitely going to be in the mix for targets, and I think he kind of profiles more like a Mike Williams receiver. So you may see him line up more on the outside with Trey Palmer, probably more on the inside.
Yeah, he
I'm
did
sorry,
go
not Trey
from
Palmer.
Josh
Jeez,
Palmer.
Josh Palmer. Yeah,
I knew what you meant. I knew.
yeah,
Which Trey Palmer did have a good game against the Saints.
he
Well,
did. Yeah,
he had a touchdown.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, Quentin Johnson. Last week he had a 20% snap count, and it went up to 51. So he still only averaged about 3 targets. So we'll see how that goes. Palmer did have a good game, so they might not be worried about bringing in Quentin Johnson so fast. They'll take it slow.
yeah.
Um, Kyron Williams, uncertain versus the Eagles. Do you think he plays?
He's playing.
He's playing.
He's
Well,
playing.
a sneaky little waiver wire pickup. I'm not saying I would, unload my fab for him. I think I know. I think you know who I'm going
Yeah,
towards. Ronnie Rivers,
Ronnie
man.
Rivers.
I I in my deep 12 league dynasty league, I got him. So hopefully, if something happens to Williams, that's the guy to start because it seems like he's kind of like a Kylan Williams clone, in my opinion.
A little
It's
bit.
like
Yeah,
it's like they're the same backs,
yeah.
you know,
Same skill
uh,
set.
for sure. So if you miss out on your top waiver wire pickups like Jalil and who else, Jameson Williams, Dobbs, maybe that's a guy you go after. Um, Armstead for the Dolphins, left tackle. Uh, he is out versus the Giants, and he might be out a couple more weeks with a knee injury. So that could affect Tua's pass protection here. I wouldn't say it's exactly struggled against the Bills. I mean that's probably the worst they've been.
Yeah.
So, how do you think the future without Armstead for the next couple of weeks affects the Dolphins' offense, which, in my opinion, has been the best offense in the league so far? Uh, what do you think about that?
Definitely affects their offensive line, which could impact Tua. But the way that they play their offense, they're so fast. They're fast at getting the ball out. They're fast at getting the ball to their playmakers. I don't see it making that big of an impact where you're downgrading any Dolphins skill players or Tua to that effect. I think you still rolled them out there. I think what you saw against the Bills is that that's a division game. They're always tough. You have two teams that know each other really well. So I wouldn't overreact or panic to what you saw against the Bills. You're still going to start your Dolphins players. And I think this is the perfect week to start A Chain. I think you can start A Chain and Mostert at the same time.
A Chain's
Along
been
with
a beast.
along with Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Do you try to sell high on A Chain? Maybe
No,
get no, you're keeping him.
I'm keeping him.
Do
I
you
just
think
feel like I feel like he's one of those guys that you pick up early in the season and he becomes a league winner for you later.
mm,
Um, I think he just has that skill set of those types of players. It's like Puka. Like, are you
I
trying to
was
give up on Puka?
I almost traded him, bro. I almost traded him. I forgot. I know it was Tank Dell and somebody else, and I almost took the offer. I forgot who the second player was, but I didn't do it. And I luckily he went off for another week. And honestly, the more you watch him, the more he plays. I don't think Cooper Cup when he comes back affects his production. I'm
No.
just no his receptions might go down to like 7 or 8 from like he's been getting over 10. But still, I think the production as far as yards. I think he just got his first touchdown or second touchdown, right?
Yep. First
Just
touchdown.
first touchdown. So I don't. I think he's still going to be at the very least at the end of the year, top 10, if not top 5 wide receiver at the end of the year. So
Yeah.
as far as total fantasy points,
I think A Chain and Puka are two guys that you picked up off your waiver wire that become those guys that are league winners for you later on down the line because you weren't expecting them to contribute to your lineup. So, you're playing with house money right now. And A Chain is the backup for Raheem Mostert, who consistently gets injured. So, you're just counting on an injury and him taking off at that point.
I might try to sell the house for A Chain. We'll see. I might get that trade going. Uh, so Kenny Pickett, um, Steelers been struggling offensively anyway. He's got some knee problems, questionable against the Ravens. Not good. So
It impacts Jalen Warren to me. It makes
yeah,
Jalen Warren more valuable because Mason Rudolph is Mason Rudolph. He's not good. You
no
got to
Pat
down
Fairmouth either.
no Pat Frymouth. You got to downgrade your wide receivers for the Steelers. I think they're going to utilize Najee and probably Jalen more in the passing game to create short screens, things to make it easier on Mason Rudolph.
For sure. And for a coach, offense coordinator who is on the hot seat right now and he's getting a lot of pressure, this is not good. I would just stay away from the Steelers. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I like Warren. I like Warren over Harris now for sure. The only Steelers player offensively I'm picking is maybe George Pickens. And that's the only one I'm probably starting.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, questionable versus Lions, left the Saints. I think he'll play. But that's about all the
But
injuries,
he, hold on. He has a hamstring injury, and that's not easy to come back from.
I don't
Let's
know. I,
see.
I think he plays against the Lions.
We'll see what the practice report looks like, but I do have a breakout that I'm going to discuss in a second.
Well, you go ahead. Go ahead. And
Okay. Devin Tompkins for the Bucks. If Mike Evans does not play, look for Devin Tompkins. I think you can slide him in if Mike Evans isn't playing. This is a guy that they've been talking up in camp. It's a guy that they've been talking up throughout the season. And they're looking to get him more opportunities. He's more of like a gadget guy. that can take some pressure off of the quarterback, off of Mayfield with Evans not being there. I say look for Tompkins.
Hopkins, I think is a good option there. Uh, a similar player to him, like in comparison, would be Wendell Robinson. Those
Hmm.
were two.
Yep.
Those were two similar players. So, if you need a comparison in some sort, that's a pretty good comparison. Uh, if we're talking breakouts, I only have two guys here. Uh, Michael Wilson for the Cardinals.
My guy, I told you about him a couple weeks ago.
You did. I picked him up last week. It was a great pickup. Uh, I think he's going to end up Cardinals wide receiver one by maybe halfway through the season. In my opinion, I think he's going to surpass Brown in targets sooner or later. Not saying Brown's been awesome actually.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, the Cardinals haven't been half bad as what people think they should have been. Josh Dobbs slinging the ball out there. James Conner's running the ball pretty hard. So, I
Yep.
mean, it's a good little competitive team. Not a playoff team, but they're competitive. You know, Michael Wilson, breakout player. And then a guy I continue to mention, Jaleel McLaughlin for the Denver Broncos. I mean, just think about it. He had 7 rushes for 72 yards, 3 reception, 32 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 19.4 points. I know it's against the Bears, but you just got to look back to Sean Payton's pass here. This is the type of running back he likes to put on the field. He loves them undrafted rookies. I, he's going to be the Broncos' top running back. I can already tell you right now. Now, do I think he's gonna be like crazy good? I No, but I do think he's gonna be the Broncos RB1. So those are my two breakout guys right there.
Yeah. So Michael Wilson was one of mine. Tompkins was another. Um, the other one that I had was Josh Downs for Indy, going against Tennessee this week. Um, I
No,
don't think. Go ahead.
no love for Alec Pierce.
Nah, no love for Alec
No,
Pierce.
no.
I think Josh Downs has kind of moved ahead of Alec Pierce in that depth chart. I'm saying if you're looking for somebody, it looks like Anthony Richardson has good chemistry with him. I think he's a good play this week against Tennessee.
For sure, he's definitely a guy I've been keeping my eye on, especially in some of my deeper leagues. He's steadily getting a higher snap count. That's what I look at for most part. Snap counts, targets.
Yep.
That's what I kind of look for, and you can steadily see, him steadily improving his targets. A guy I forgot to mention, Jake Ferguson. He's among the league leaders in targets per um, per route ran.
Okay.
So that's an interesting stat. Jake Ferguson, if he's on your waiver wire and you need a tight end, go pick him up. Uh, he might be your best option, and he might be one of the best tight ends out there for the rest of the season because Dak Prescott seems to love him, and I know Hill would probably tell you all about him because he's such a Cowboys fan,
Yes, he would.
Yeah, I mean Jake Ferguson. But that's pretty much all I had. Uh, Now starts and sits. Who are some of your starts and sits
My start of the week this week is Garrett Wilson. Um, Jets are
against
going
Kansas
against
City?
going against Denver.
Oh, Denver. That's right, Denver.
Yeah, going
Minnesota's
against
playing
Denver.
Kansas City.
Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson are part of my starts this week. I think if you're looking for a week for the Jets to really get it back on track, this is it. Going against one of the worst defenses in the league, I just think that this is a good opportunity for them to further build their chemistry. Um, Also, I don't know if he's coming back this week, but Saquon, um, going against Miami. Miami is the worst defense in every statistical category, which surprises me. with just how much they invested into it with Vic Fangio, Xavier Howard, Bradley Chubb, but they're giving up the most yards on the passing and rushing. Um, New York doesn't pass like that, but they run the ball. So I say Saquon, Matt Breida, um, Tony Pollard against San Fran. I know people really like San Fran's defense, but San Fran is the third worst defense against the rush.
Mm.
So fire Tony Pollard up this week. Trying to think who else. Uh, Joe Mixon against Arizona. I like that matchup. Um, Start of the week for me is Trevor Lawrence going against Buffalo. Buffalo is like bottom six against pass and just lost Tre'Davious White. They're also traveling to London, where Jacksonville has already been out in London. They're playing their second game out there, so they're well rested. Look for Trevor Lawrence to get it on track this week. I know a lot of people spent some high draft capital in Trevor Lawrence, and we've been disappointed. But going against Buffalo, I think this is the perfect opportunity for them to turn it around. And I do expect it to be a pretty high scoring game as well. So Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, fire them up. Even ETN, I think ETN gets in the
Mm.
pass game as well. Yeah.
That's interesting, for sure. Because I actually have Travis Etienne as a sit, bro, a
Okay.
sit. Um, I do agree with the passing offense with Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley. You might even get Say Jones back. We'll see. But Christian Kurt is a sneaky little start play as well. But as far as rushing attack, I think Buffalo locks down Travis Etienne. I don't think rushing wise, Etienne would be much of a factor. Uh, is he? He's going to be a factor through the air. I would imagine Buffalo would try their best to lock down the backfield, and where they're best at is the linebacker core, defensive line. So I expect them to
So
struggle against one-on-one against wide receivers.
surprisingly, Buffalo is bottom 8 against the rush this season.
Really, really.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's
They're
interesting.
they're the eighth worst against the rush.
Hmm. We'll see. I mean, yeah, because A Chain kind of went off last week, didn't he?
Yep.
Each- Hmm. That makes sense. My starts: Sam Howell versus Bears.
I
You
like
know,
it.
he looked pretty good last week. Russell Wilson tore up the Bears. Well, came back to tore up the Bears. Um, but yeah, Sam Howell, he was on fire against the Eagles last week, even though he lost. So Sam Howell, Isaiah Pacheco, keep riding that hot hand versus the Vikings. It's at home. Uh, Pacheco seems like he's starting to become the Chiefs' best offensive weapon outside of Kelsey. So start Isaiah Pacheco. Uh, now, cover your ears, Hill. So Brandon Ayuk, start him versus Dallas, bro. I think he goes off. I think this is a game where he'll go off against Dallas. No Trayvon Diggs. Although Bland and the rest of the secondary for the Cowboys have been great.
They
Give them
look good.
credit.
They
But
look
who
good.
have they played? So
That's true
uh,
too.
I'm just saying, who have they played? I mean, I
That's true
mean, uh,
too.
if I'm not mistaken, Michael Wilson and Hollywood Brown, had a game against them. I'm not too sure. I know they beat them. So Brandon Ayuk, start him. My other sits outside of Travis Etienne was Sack Moss versus Tennessee. I don't know, man. And you don't even know if Jonathan Taylor is going to play or not, or even practice. That whole situation is a mess. Um, Sit Kirk Cousins. Maybe pick somebody else off the waiver wire.
Yeah, I got Zach Moss as a sit as well. Um, Another one that I'm sitting, if Kyron Williams plays, I'm sitting Kyron Williams this week. Ronnie Rivers as well. Um, Surprisingly, I'm sitting CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. Um, I know it's Atlanta, but Atlanta's passing defense has been a little bit better than expected um, for some people. Miles Sanders sit going against Detroit. Um, who else? Any New England receiver sit going against New
I will
Orleans.
actually be at the game, by the way. I will be in
Okay.
New England. I'm a fly up there. So
Um, and I would say this is going to be a rough week for any Arizona Cardinals receiver as well. I know they're going against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's defense has been a little bit better than expected as well. So if you have Michael Wilson, pick him up, see how he does this week. But I wouldn't put him in my lineup like right away. I think he's going to be good going after this game. But Cincinnati is a tough play as well. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I think that's all of my sits for this week.
I gotcha. And I liked how you mentioned Zach Wilson earlier because he was listed as my sleepers. I do like that matchup versus Denver. He looked pretty good against Kansas City. Uh, I do like Zach Wilson, especially if you're looking for a streaming option there. You've seen Justin Fields and other quarterbacks absolutely pour it on Broncos defense. So maybe Zach Wilson after this game versus Kansas City, he has another kind of a breakout game. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, Terrence Marshall, Johnu Smith, two other sleepers. So just keep an eye on those. But that's about it for me tonight. I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, it should be an
So,
interesting week 5. You got some bye weeks going on, so
yep.
um,
One sleeper that I have before we leave, Zach Ertz this week. If you're looking for a tight end, I think Zach Ertz is a good play. He got 10 targets last week, going against Cincinnati, who is one of the best pass defenses. So look for the matchups against the linebackers. Another one, I'm sorry, we did have a question from one of the viewers before we leave, and it said, "Who would y'all rather have in fantasy football, Amon-Ra St. Brown or AJ Brown?" It's a great question. Who
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 would
are
you
you
rather have?
taking? Who are you taking, Amon-Ra or AJ?
Probably AJ.
Okay,
Just
explain why you would take AJ over Amon-Ra.
I don't know. I just feel like AJ is has done it longer, I guess. So it's more of a comfortability factor. And I think he has a better quarterback, and I think he has a better supporting cast around him. He has a legit wide receiver too that can open him up at any time. You've seen it last week. He went off for 43 fantasy points, and that's something that you can actually see on a regular occurrence. Maybe not every game, but he's definitely a guy that has top 5 value as terms of wide receivers overall. Amon's been great. I don't know. I would have to pull out his stat sheet because I haven't really looked at Amon, but I mean, I've been watching AJ, and if I'm watching AJ more than I'm watching Amon, then I guess Amon's not doing as much as AJ, if that makes sense. So I mean, so I would choose AJ Brown. Especially they're going to be playing more meaningful games. Well, let me rephrase that. That's not true. Because
No, that's not
line's going to
true.
be good. That's
No,
not
that's not
true. That's
true.
not true. Um, I don't know. I just like AJ better. I just like AJ.
I like Amon-Ra in PPR. I like AJ better in the standard league.
Mm.
Um, Amon-Ra, I think, is Jared. He is Jared Goff's favorite target, and you see that they scheme him up in that offense. I think the Eagles' offense is going to be hard to track week to week. You're going to have blowout games from AJ, but you're also going to have blowout games from Devontae. Like this week going against LA, I like Devontae this week. I think you're going to see times where AJ is going to be screaming about getting them the ball, and then you're going to see them force feed him the ball. But Amon-Ra's production is going to be steady throughout the whole season. And unlike years before where his touchdown production wasn't that great, he's getting in the end zone now, which is scary from a fantasy perspective if you have to go up against him, because you're talking about a guy that could get 8 to 10 catches in a game for 100-something yards and a TD. That's tough. So I just think AJ is a little bit more buster boom week to week. So if you're looking for more of a productive week to week player, I think Amon-Ra is a safe bet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned that pretty well because I think AJ's boom is a lot more than Amon's, but like you just said, Amon is a little bit more consistent, so that does make sense. So week 5, who plays Thursday night?
Washington and Chicago. Not great.
I expect that to be a blowout.
For who?
The Commanders.
Okay, we'll see. I'm not sold on either team. I think this is a big Justin Fields game, and DJ Moore.
Just pick up Washington's defense. Just do that.
I mean, it's not a bad bet. It's not a bad bet at all. Yeah.
Not at all. All right, so I guess that wraps it up here. And there's no crying in fantasy, So, just like how we say it every week, if you take our advice, I mean, there's no crying in fantasy. So,
There's no crying in fantasy.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sean.
All right, we'll catch y'all next week.
Catch you next week.
All right.